Hi, good evening, everyone. Can someone confirm that I'm being heard?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We're all welcome to class. And as usual, we're going to give 5 minutes break for you to remind your colleagues, drop messages on your party WhatsApp group chat so that they can join and then we get started. At exactly 5:05, we'll continue. We'll be back to start. And once again, good evening, everyone. So I always love to get a confirmation that I'm being heard. Um, can anyone hear me? Please let me know, even if you can use the chat. Okay, okay. Thank you so much. So good evening, everyone. My name is difficult as uh, my Zoom, yeah, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's class. I think this should be the second time I'm doing this cohort, and I'm hoping that we're going to have an interesting, educative, and of course, informative class today. And please, before we get started, I would love to remind you that if you're joining the class, you should write your name in the chat in form of attendance. If that's taking attendance, you write your name in the chat. And again, please, once the class starts, in case you have any questions, you can note them down. When it's time for questioning, we're going to be interchanging from those speaking and from the chat to take the questions. So we're all welcome to class once again. And today we're going to be talking about democracy and citizens' participation. But as usual, before we get started, it's a dicey and very interesting topic, by the way, democracy, citizens' participation, considering what is going on in the country, like presently, right? So we're going to be talking about democracy and citizen participation. But before we get started, as usual, I'm going to introduce our facilitator for today, and in doing this, I'm going to read his brief profile before I hand over the mic to him. So, our facilitator for today is Tony Otsidame. Sorry sir, if I did not pronounce that well. Tony Otsidame is a renowned communications expert and social commentator. He's the founder of Uburu, a Nigerian-based marketing communication consultancy providing services to individuals, businesses, and governments across West Africa. Tony is also an advocate of good governance and civic responsibility. He's the convener of I Am Edo, a movement of young Edo professionals which seek to inspire pride and patriotism in all people of Edo heritage. I don't know, but I just love the way this profile is brief and rich. So with no further ado, Sai, you have the mic. Please, let's use the chat box in welcoming our facilitator. You can use the F, clapping your hands and welcoming our facilitator for today. You have the mic, sir. Okay, so if you're speaking, we can't hear you. Charlie, can you hear me? Or is it from my end?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. Sorry, please, you can go ahead. Sorry. Please, let's give our facilitator a moment, right? I know that most of you are saying you can't hear anything. Yeah, he's not speaking at the moment.
Hello, can anyone hear me? I just want to confirm that you can hear me.
Loud and clear, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. I saw your lips moving. I wasn't sure if it was my connection or if everyone else could hear you. So I logged out and logged in. I'm glad everything is fine now. I didn't hear anything that you said so far. Were you introducing me or what?
Yes, I read your profile
Oh,
and I was
I
appreciating how
missed all
brief and
that.
rich it is.
I missed all that. I'm sorry. So are we
Problem.
good to go?
Yes, we're good to go. You have the mic, sir.
All right, great. Can someone help me project my presentation, please, so that
Oh,
the class can see it? Okay, good evening, class. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name, as I'm sure you already know, is Tony Usidamin. I'm not an expert in this subject. I'm just a passionate citizen. And in the next 1 hour or so, what I intend to do is to share what I have learned through my experience interacting with different people on this subject of democracy and citizenship. I would like to request that if you have questions at any point, please note them down. If there are also comments, things you'd like to call my attention to, you can put them in the chat box, and sometime during the presentation, I will look in there and make reference to your comments and questions. I believe that at the end of the presentation, there will be some time for questions and answer. Hopefully, I'll be able to provide some answers to those. So let's start right away. Our topic is democracy and citizen participation. Next slide. So in this class, we are going to be looking at the different forms of government that we have. We'll consider anarchism, autocracy, oligarchy, and of course, democracy. Then we will talk about democracy at greater length. We'll look at the meaning and practice of democracy, the different variants of democracy that we have, and then the challenges of democracy as a system of government. And then we would look at the concepts surrounding citizenship, citizens as users and consumers, and citizens as shapers and makers. And then we'll look at the issues in modern day citizenship and close by looking at what it means to build an active citizenry. Okay, so let's start with the different forms of government that we have. Um, in simple terms, government is the body with the power to make or enforce laws to control a country, a land area, a people, or an organization. I'll take that again. Government is the body with the power to make and or enforce laws to control a country, a land, a people, or an organization. I took the time to separate these different aspects of the concept of governance, because when people think of government, usually you think of a geographical territory, like a land area, a country. But government isn't just, the term isn't just applicable to countries or, geographical territories. It's also applicable to relationships amongst people and organizations. That's why today in the corporate world, there's a term called corporate governance, which just means that even amongst businesses, there's a form of government. And even in, different associations that people belong to, whether they are professional associations, religious associations, social associations, there exists a kind of government even within those normal human associations. So government, broadly speaking, is the body that makes or enforce laws to control not just a country or a geographical territory, but also people and an organization. And most societies today agree that the existence of government in whatever form is morally justified. Now, let's look at the types of governments that we have. Students of political science will probably tell you there are others, but for the purpose of this class, we're going to be looking at 4 distinctly different types of government. We're going to start with the first, which is anarchism. Technically, anarchism means rule by none. Rule by none. It's a society without a publicly enforced government or political authority. I mean, if you think about it, just looking at the term strictly, you would ask, is it possible to have a society without some form of government? The answer, if you just look at it, may be no. But even within other forms of government, as we would see later in the course of this presentation, you can have situations that are referred to as, that can be defined as anarchy. And I would explain that as we go on. But just know that technically, anarchism is rule by none. That's a society without a publicly enforced government or political authority. The next type of government we're going to look at is autocracy. An autocracy simply means rule by one. It's a system of government in which supreme power, whether it is social or political, is concentrated in the hands of one person or group of persons, and whose decisions are subject to neither external legal restraints nor any regularized mechanisms of popular control, meaning that power is concentrated only in the hands of one person or just, a small group of people. And we're talking absolute monarchies, such as we have in countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, and Brunei, and dictatorships also, like we have in North Korea. Those are examples or modern day forms of autocratic government. Okay? So let's look at the next one, which is oligarchy. Oligarchy, following the same trend. Remember that we started with anarchism. We said anarchism is rule by none, technically. Autocracy is rule by one. That's the concept of the strong man that, holds the reins of power. And then oligarchy, in contrast to those two, is rule by a few. It's a form of power structure in which power rests just with a small number of people. And these people, you can distinguish them by different factors. So oligarchy can be further broken down to aristocracy. Aristocracy is ruled by the nobility. So when you talk about the noble families, that is an example of aristocracy, where people inherit power because they are born into a noble family. So aristocracy is one of the subsets of oligarchy as a system of government. Another type of distinguishing factor under oligarchy is plutocracy, which simply means rule by the wealthy. So if you have a situation where it is the people with the most money who are determining what happens within a country or geographical area, that system of government is known as a plutocracy, which is ruled by the wealthy. Then there is the meritocracy, which simply means rule by the meritorious. That's those who are distinguished in different fields of endeavor. For instance, when you have like the engineers, for instance, professional engineers in charge of all construction works, roads, infrastructure building, and they are the ones that are in charge of those things. That kind of government is called a meritocracy, where people with specific skills are the ones governing in a particular area. And then finally, there is theocracy, which technically means rule by God. But we all know that, God will not descend and rule by himself. So in this system of government, power is exercised by a religious elite. And the country of Iran has many aspects of a theocratic state. So these are the different types of or forms of government under oligarchy, which is ruled by a few. Aristocracy, which has to do with people of noble birth leading. Plutocracy, which has to do with the richest and the wealthiest ruling. Meritocracy, which has the professionals in different fields ruling. And theocracy, which simply means a religious elite exercises the power that is ascribed to God. And the state, makes laws on behalf of the state. So those are the different forms of oligarchic government. Now we would look at democracy, which, following the same trend, is rule by the majority. Again, a recap. Anarchism is ruled by none, technically speaking. Autocracy is ruled by one. Oligarchy is ruled by a few. And democracy is ruled by the majority. The most popular definition of democracy is that it is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In the next slide, we will delve deeper into the democratic system of government. So now let's look at the origin and practice of democracy. Before we delve into the more technical side of things, if I asked everyone here what they think about democracy, these are the answers that I am sure that some of you will put forward. That democracy is a government of the people, that democracy represents the will of the majority, that it is competition for political power, that it is the right to voice your opinions, it is freedom to be part of an association, that democracy means equality, rights, and representation, that democracy has to do with free markets, that it entails citizen action, and of course, you can't talk about democracy without talking about elections. Okay, So now let us go deeper into the origins of democracy. Now, the term democracy is derived from the Greek word demokratia, which is coined from two separate words, demos, meaning people, and kratos, meaning rule. Remember, we said it is rule by many, in contrast to the other systems of government that we looked at. And as a concept or as a system of government, it was thought to have started around the middle of the 5th century. However, scholars say that democracy was the natural system of government amongst the non-literate tribal societies. That's those thousands of years when people survived by hunting and gathering. Scholars say that well before the 5th century, when the concept was thought to have started, that democracy existed long before then, that when people organized themselves into small groups and had leaders amongst themselves in those years when they were hunter-gatherers, that democracy was the popular system of government then. However, as greater inequalities started to show up when it comes to wealth and military power between communities, the more popular system of government, that is democracy, gave way to the hierarchical kind of governments like the monarchies or the authoritarian kind of governments. What happened was that some communities, because they have more wealth and because they have been able to assemble soldiers and have military might, they would just look at a neighboring community and say, hey, we can enter this place and ransack the place and raid the place and take everything they have because we are stronger than them, we have more money than them. And that's how you started seeing people moving into communities and exerting control over those communities, talking about the people and the resources within those communities. So, whereas there were already systems of governance in place that, like I said, those thousands of years when people were hunter-gatherers, when communities saw that they had greater strength, then they would move into other communities and suppress those communities and exert control over them. This was how the democratic system of government gave way for many years to the more authoritarian forms of government. So the people with power, the people with military might, they now started enforcing their own government on people who before then exercised some form of democratic governance. Okay. Then around 500 BC, conditions favorable to democracy started to reappear. And in places like Rome and Greece, the primitive form of democracy was sort of reinvented and it started to take root again. And today, as we would see, democracy is like the most popular system of government across the world. Now, democracy in its practice has two different types, broadly speaking. Now we're talking about the variants of democracy. There is the direct or the participatory democracy, which simply is a form of government where citizens themselves make legislative decisions instead of delegating it to representative. This kind of democratic government is known as the purest form. Examples are the referendums and the petitions, referendums and petitions, where voters participate directly. If you remember, one of the examples that I can use in recent times is the Scottish referendum of 2014, where the people of Scotland voted whether or not to remain a part of the United Kingdom. In that election, 55% said, no, we don't want to go. But only 44% said, yes, we want to go. That is why Scotland is today still a part of the United Kingdom. But that decision was made directly by the people in what is called a referendum. And the most recent example of this pure form of democracy is the Brexit, which happened in 2016, where the people of Britain and the United Kingdom voted whether or not to remain a part of the EU. As it happened, 51%, approximately 52, voted to leave, while 48% voted to stay and remain a part of the EU. So today, Britain and the United Kingdom are no longer considered part of the Schengen states, which, most of the EU countries are a part of. That's why when you want to get a visa to travel to Europe today, if you're considering going to the United Kingdom, you would need a separate visa, different from the Schengen visa that you would use to visit other parts of Europe. That is because today, Britain and the United Kingdom are no longer a part of the EU in terms of, group of countries coming together. So yes, those two examples are the more recent examples of what it means for the people themselves to directly determine what is their what system of governance that they want. And that is the direct or participatory democracy. The other variant of democracy is what is called the representative or indirect democracy. That is a form of government where legislation is enacted by a few people or representatives that are elected by the citizens. In contrast to the direct democracy that we just talked about, the majority of the people hand over power to a minority that they trust in some way to act in their interest. So the minority will now decide and make laws for the people, maybe based on the express wishes of the people or what they think is the best for the people. And that is really the kind of government that we practice here in the country, and indeed in a lot of the democracies around the world. Okay, let's go on. Now, we want to look at the comparative advantage of democracy vis-a-vis the other forms of government. Remember, we started by talking about autocracy, and then we talked about we started by talking about the rule by none, which is anarchism, and then autocracy, and then oligarchy. before I begin this particular slide, let me just say that democracy wouldn't be the most popular system of government today if the people thought that another form offers them better than what democracy offers. Okay, now this is not me saying that democracy is best. I'm just deducing that because of the 195 recognized countries in the world today, by the UN, that is, 167 practice democracy. Those 167 won't if they think that any of these other forms of government that we looked at offers the people and the countries better than democracy does. And these are some of the comparative advantages. Caveats, and I am saying this in theory, not in absolute terms, not, in 100% practical cases, but in theory, democracy is thought to prevent rule by autocrats. But then again, we have seen in some, in quotes, democratic states where the presidents, or the elected officials almost act as though they were autocrats. I'm not going to name names, but examples abound. When you have a democracy where the other arms of government that are supposed to be independent cower to the executive or are lame duck groups. I'm talking about the judiciary or the legislative arms of government. What you have in practice is not really a democracy. What you have is an autocracy or maybe oligarchy, because it is one person or a group of people as against systems set up within a democracy for checks and balances. It is one person or a group of people that are actually deciding the fate of the people in that country. So even though in theory, democracy is set to prevent rule by autocrats, we see in some so-called democratic states that even in those democracies, the leaders act like they are autocrats, okay? That's why I put a caveat. Also, talking about advantages, comparative advantages, democracy is thought to guarantee fundamental individual rights. It is thought to allow for a relatively high level of political equality. It is thought to better foster human development. And when we talk about human development, we're talking indices such as health, access to health, access to education. We're talking about the rule of law and human rights protection. We're talking about peace and security. We're talking about prosperity of the people. So democracy is thought to offer more when you talk about these different indicators of human development. But as we know, there are certain countries that don't particularly practice democracy, but where it seems that these indices that I mentioned are far better than in some of the so-called democratic nations. And finally, like I said before, democracy compared to the other forms of government is thought to provide more prosperity, because unlike the other systems of government, like the autocratic government or the oligarchic government, where few people corner the resources of the state for themselves, in a real democracy, again, don't quote me. I said there's a caveat. In a real democracy, no one is supposed to amass as much. No individual or group of person is supposed to amass as much of the state's wealth. In a real democracy, that wealth is supposed to be spread so that many of the citizens are lifted out of poverty and enjoy prosperity. So, comparatively, in theory, democracy is thought to offer better advantages along all of these lines than other systems of government. And if the 195 countries, if the 167 of the 195 countries of the world today who practice democracy actually believe that any other form of government is better than democracy, then not as many of them would still be practicing democracy today. But I would like to ask you, do you think personally that democracy is the best form of government for countries across the world? If you ask me, while it offers all of these advantages and it seems to protect the rights of a lot of people, maybe, just maybe, different countries, different geographical areas should be free to decide what systems of government actually works best within their own peculiar situations instead of copying and pasting what other societies are doing. Again, this is not me arguing for one over the other. I'm just saying that maybe, just maybe, if people tested different systems and judged which catered to that fundamental idea of democracy, which is the well-being or prosperity or protection of the rights of the majority, if they judged that any system of government offered that much more than the democratic government, maybe they should be encouraged to adopt that system of government. I would love to know what you think in the comments. But remember, democracy would not have lasted this long, and it would not be the most popular the world over if the people generally did not think that it offered advantages better than the other systems of government. Remember that the central theme of democracy is universality, which is protection of the rights of the majority of the people as against, individuals or a small group of people. Democracy, let's look at the challenges of democratic governance. I started to talk about some of them before. Democracy is not without its challenges. And as I said, even in countries that are said to be democratic or that profess to be democratic states, sometimes we see other forms of government rear their head. For instance, there was a time in this country where we did not know where our president was. We did not even know whether our president was alive or not. If you remember, it took the late Dora Akunyili shouting out at one point before it was eventually revealed that President Yaradua had passed. As it were, there seemed to have been a lacuna, and certain people that they called a cabal stepped into that space, or were just trying to manage things, and it was almost as if the country was rudderless until this lady shouted and said, something is happening. No, I do not think that the president is still in charge of this country. We also had an alien president that left this country for many, many months, and people did not even know whether I was alive or dead. Now, that is supposed to be a democracy, but even in democracies, there are cases or instances where it appears like the country is without any form of leadership. And that is what I mean, or scholars mean, when they talk about anarchy as a kind of government, a state where it appears as if no one is really in charge and things are just happening. As somebody said, turning on their own. Things are just happening anyhow. And we have seen that at different times during this project, during the life of this project called Nigeria, and in many other nations around the world. A country, for instance, like Rwanda, is praised for development in a lot of areas. Rwanda calls itself a democratic nation. However, some people think that in the style of government that the president or the leadership of that country adopts, that they are a little bit high-handed, because even though it is said to be a democracy, there is almost no opposition voice. Any voice of dissent is shut down. Opposition leaders are arbitrarily arrested and put in jail. So despite democracy being the system in quote in operation, we still see semblance of other types of government. Even oligarchy in democracies around the world, you see that sometimes it is a few people that are actually deciding the fate of the countries. And these people, either they are the elites, the wealthy people, or just, some power brokers within the system. You think that you actually have a democracy where systems are in place and running properly, checks and balances are in place, but you have some people, puppet masters behind the scenes who are actually pulling the strings. So again, democracy has so many advantages, but it is not without its challenges, as we have seen. And sometimes even in a supposed democratic state, you still find other kinds of government at play, even within what is majority called a democratic government. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the concept of citizenship, because you really cannot talk about democracy. Remember what I said earlier, that what is at the heart of democracy, which is actually the meaning of democracy, ruled by the majority, is its universality. Universality meaning that most agree and they are the ones deciding how things are run within the state. And it is because of democracy that we really can talk about citizenship. You can't talk about citizenship without democracy, and you can't talk about democracy without citizenship, because they are two sides of a coin, as a Latin American activist puts it. Now, citizenship as a concept has evolved in its meaning and application over time. And we're going to explore the different concepts of citizenship. The very first one, when people started to advance that as a concept, when the citizenship started to become a theme in social discourse and debates was one that put citizenship as something defined by the government of the day, not really by the people. So early understanding of citizenship was that a good citizen is one who just follows hook, line, and sinker what the government tells them to do. They have absolutely no say whatsoever in how decisions are taken, in resource control, in anything. The government treats the people as though they were incapable of deciding what is good for them. And that was how the concept of citizenship started. It was one where the rights and responsibilities were defined by the government, and the people just had to tag along. They really didn't have the opportunity or the chance to think for themselves. They just had to follow, and that was what was required of them. And the reason why the governments in place did this was because they felt that they, more than everybody else, understood what was best for the people, and they made more unilateral decisions instead of, carrying the people along. But the second concept, that concept, users and consumers gave way to a different concept, the concept of citizens as shapers and makers. Because advocates said it is not that the people are not capable of making decisions for themselves. It's not that they are distracted about the consumer economy that is just consuming without thinking about production or being productive. It is not that they just want to be told what to do. It is because the government would not let them be a part of decision making. It is because the government concentrated, a few people concentrated power in their own hands. So over time, advocates have helped to push that narrative that a good citizen is one who just follows. And today, citizenship has moved beyond seeing the states, as this Institute of Development Studies UK puts it. They've moved beyond seeing the state as bestowing rights and demanding responsibilities of subjects. In doing so, they aim to bridge the gap between the citizen and the state by recasting citizenship as practiced rather than given. So instead of just telling people, this is what you should do, this is what is good for you, and all of that, today the concept of citizenship is such that we are part of that process. That's why we have elections, and that's why we have to make sure that our voices count when it comes to matters that concern us as a people. Now, let's look at the issues in modern day citizenship. Remember, we looked at democracy, the origin, practice. We looked at the advantages, and then we also looked at some of the challenges. Again, citizenship is not without its own challenges. Remember what I said before about democracy, that the central theme of democracy is that it is about the majority. The central theme is universality, meaning that what is best for most of us. That is what technically, in the purest term, that is what democracy and citizenship should be about the good of the majority. However, Because even in different societies, we are differentiated by very many different factors like race, gender, religion, class, age, ethnicity, sexual preference, amongst, many others that we can explore. Some people say that concept that we have to look out for the interest of the majority isn't practical because we have so many differences amongst us. For instance, let's look at this class. Let's look at this class. How many people are in this class right now? Let me see. In this class, okay, there are 131 people in class. And in this class, we have Tolulope, who is Yoruba, could be a Muslim, could be a Christian, but he is Yoruba. We have Ahmed Mohammed. My guess is that Ahmed is of the northern extraction. We have Robert Obeya. Robert Obeya seems to me like someone either around I may be wrong, forgive me if I am, the Middle Belt, or maybe the South-South region. We have Ijoma. Ijoma is likely of the Igbo extraction. We have Israel Gambo, who, if my guess is right, is somewhere around the north. Now, what I'm simply trying to do is to show how very diverse the people within this class are. We have men, we have women, we have Christians, we have Muslims, we have Yorubas, we have Hausas, we have Igbos. All of these different subsects have peculiar needs and challenges. So one of the issues in modern day citizenship is, Robert Obeya is from Benue State. Okay, thank you for that. One of the challenges in modern day citizenship is that because these different things that distinguish us, they are our identity. I, for instance, am an Edo man. I do not identify with any religion right now. But you have somebody who is an Edo Christian that has an Edo Christian man that has a particular outlook on life and way of life and certain values. And that person, even within Edo State, is different from an Edo person that is a Muslim that has their own way of life. Now, if democracy is about the rights of the majority, the welfare of the majority, how can we ensure that these different groups with their different needs, in looking out for their own welfare, we are not impeding on the welfare of another group? I'll give you an example. Some years back, there was a baker in the United States, in Colorado, United States, who was approached by a gay couple. They were going to get married, and they wanted this baker, who was Christian, to bake a cake for them that reflects their union as a same-sex couple. Now, this baker said, I am a Christian, and my faith does not allow me to propagate what it is that you are trying to ask me to do. And so I will not bake that cake for you. Now, some people will argue that that couple also have rights and they have a right to be served. And indeed, that couple took the baker to court, and the Colorado Rights Commission actually ruled that that baker had infringed on the rights of that same-sex couple to be served. It took years before the Supreme Court overturned that decision and ruled in favor of the baker. But even after this ruling, the discussions are still open as to where does the protection of the rights of one person between a group of people impede on the rights of another. Because the people who are arguing that the couple have a right to be served irrespective of their sexual orientation are actually doing this from, in quotes, a democratic viewpoint, meaning that everyone's rights should be protected. However, in a democracy, we also have individual rights. I have my right to expression of my religion. How does exercising my own rights impede on another person's rights? And how does the other person's rights impede on mine or infringe on mine? Sorry. Those are some of the challenges of modern day citizenship. And discussions are still on as to the best way to ensure that the rights of everyone, especially the most vulnerable in society, are protected, because a true democracy is supposed to guarantee that majority. Remember when we looked at the advantages, one of the advantages is that the rights of the majority is guaranteed under a democracy. But then there are these subtle issues that still need to be addressed, because where one person's rights starts, another one ends. Where one ends, another one starts. We have to find a balance to make sure that most of the people, their rights are protected within a democracy. Okay? Now, another issue, the second one that I'd like us to look at in modern day citizenship, is private life versus public life. Now, many people, and I think many of us are probably being guilty of this, think that what we do in private has nothing to do with our position as citizens of a country. I'll give you an example. In this country, a certain senator representing a state, I think it was Adamawa, would go to the floor of the House and profess to be someone who is pro-women and would probably sponsor bills that will ensure that girls get an education, or bills that prevent early marriages, just for example, or speak passionately about how women and girls should be protected on the floor of the House. But then this same senator, as it happened, had ventured into a sex toy shop one day and felt that the manner that he was addressed by the salespersons who were women in that shop wasn't nice, and got physically abusive. In fact, had his aides beat up those ladies. Now, in public, this person claims to be a model citizen, a representative of the people, a senator, who is promoting the defense of women, of girls in public. But in private, this same person is malhandling and beating up women. How do you reconcile that? More recently, there was another honorable, as they are called, because in the real sense, there was nothing honorable about his behavior, had threatened to unalive a taxi, an Uber or Bolt rider, because the person had asked that he comes to meet him at the designated point to receive goods that he had brought for that honorable or lawmaker. And then he threatened, and this was caught on camera, that he would make him disappear. Now, people came out after that incident to say, oh, this man is a very good man. He's a philanthropist. He's looking out for the poor in his area. He's doing so many things. He respects people in public. But look at what he is doing in private. And this is not just about people in positions of authority, public officials, even us. How many of us in positions where we can hire, for instance, we can recruit people into a campaign or give them a job or something, and instead of looking at competence, how many of us hire because people are from our own states or are of our own religion? Very many of us do it. Very many of us do it. As a matter of fact, I know this person's in church, true life story. The man was an Igbo man, and then the other lady was Yoruba. And both of them were, in the Catholic Church, they call them church wardens. In other denominations, I think they're called ushers. They were both ushers or wardens. They were workers. Let's just say they were workers in the church. And these two people got along well. The Igbo man and the Yoruba woman. They were good friends. They saw each other as brother and sisters in church, and everything was fine. But when their children met and decided that they were going to get married, all hell broke loose. The man said, over his dead body, will he allow his daughter to marry a Yoruba man? And guess what? This man did not attend. The children insisted that they would go ahead and get married. This man refused to attend the wedding of his own daughter. Meanwhile, before their children decided to get involved, both of them, the parents, they were peacefully coexisting. Nothing was wrong. This is another example of how in private, our identity is different from what we exhibit in public. And these are some of the issues in modern day citizenship. Some of the challenges in modern day citizenship. And like I said, this is not just about leaders. I've given examples about us, how we comport ourselves, what influences the kind of decisions that we make. Are we in the spirit of democracy, which is about universality, ensuring that everyone is carried along, especially the most vulnerable amongst us. Everyone feels welcome. Everyone feels seen. Everyone feels heard. Are we making our decisions in the interest of that common good? Or are we different in the criteria that we use when we are in private compared to when we are in public? Those are some of the issues. Oh, many abound. Again, I don't want us to focus on just the public officials who are whose lives are under the microscope, public scrutiny, because this also affects us. We can talk about men who have influence and power and have got married to younger women. And because of the influence that they have, despite being, in quotes, statesmen, champions of women, champions of the public, philanthropists, good people, self-professed good people in public, how are they treating their wives, their young wives? I'm not naming any names, so how are they treating their young wives behind the scenes? And this is not just about men, the women who are in positions of power. How are they treating young men who merit opportunities, but would rather give that opportunity to somebody merely because that person is a woman? Does it mean that that man doesn't have the qualities or doesn't deserve that opportunity? So these are issues that we have to look at and find a way of marrying our private life and our public life, because a good citizen should have same values, whether they're being looked at in public or whether nobody is looking at them. It should be the same. You can't be a good citizen only when you have the cameras on. You have to be a good citizen also when you don't have the cameras or the spotlight on you. How many men have people under them, wards, house helps, and they are society's role model, but at home, they are abusing small children? How many times do we deny people opportunities just because they are not from our faith or our ethnic group? Those are issues that we need to look at. Okay, the final issue in modern day citizenship that I want us to explore is that in different societies, what constitutes a good citizen differs. For instance, in South Africa, a country that has been through apartheid, a good citizen is one that actively fights racism. So in a post-apartheid South Africa, when they talk about citizenship, they usually would talk about being involved in fighting racism. If you're not involved in fighting racism, you're not really a good citizen. Okay? In a place like Russia, they would look at, they are more, they talk about more individual self-reliance over collective action. And then in countries that have been through wars and, conflicts, places like South Sudan, Darfur, places, Syria, a good citizen is one who seeks peaceful resolutions and reconciliation. So in different places, they have certain aspects of citizenship that are important to them, and it's important to look at that as well. Okay, let's go on to what makes a good citizen. A good citizen Of course, I like to say this when I give this class. It's fine to always tune in when Big Brother is showing. It's fine to know the names of all the contestants on Big Brother. If that's your thing, that's all well and good. It's fine to watch all the K-dramas, all the Z Worlds, all the, which other one? Telemundo, all the telenovela. It's fine. It's fine to watch football, Premiership, Champions League. It's fine to watch all that, all the series in the world. Nothing wrong with that. But a good citizen, in addition to those, should also be informed and aware of the things that are happening around them, including in the political landscape. I'm not saying all of us have to enter politics. What I am saying is it's important as good citizens to be aware of what is happening socially, economically, politically. If I asked all of us in this class today, how many of us know the names of our local government chairmen? How many people actually know? Honestly, how many of us actually know the names of our local government chairmen? We know all the footballers in Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, even in faraway Turkey and China and the US. But the name, we know all the actors and actresses. We know all the Big Brother participant housemates that have ever been on the show. But how many of us know the names of our representatives? Let's ask ourselves that question. Okay, so while all of those things are good, it's important to also be aware of what is happening politically. That's one of the signs of a good citizen. A good citizen should foster tolerance and respect for human rights in all relationships and institutions mediating conflicts. I'd like to speak a bit about this because this affects all of us. And it's linked to what I was saying before, private life and public life, how different we are. Now, some of us, men, for instance, please, men, don't think I am too hard on you. It's because the society has been so patriarchal for a while, for a long time, that a lot of the ills in society, many of them can be traced to the men. I'm not saying the women are innocent too, but we have to be frank with ourselves and look at some of these issues so that we can make changes where necessary. Now, the reason I brought this up is sometimes in public, and this also affects the women, and I'll tell you why. In public, we say, oh, we support women. We believe in equal rights for everybody. And then when we are drinking with our bodies, with our friends, I'm talking about the men, and somebody makes a joke or a statement that brings down women, rather than call the person to order, our friends, when we are drinking beer and, eating isiewu or fish, whatever it is that we enjoy and do with our friends, watching football, and they say something condescending, something that brings women down. Rather than call them out, we laugh. In fact, sometimes people share things. An example, and this also affects women too, somebody's nudes have leaked or sex tape has leaked. You know that tape being in the public domain, in most of the cases, was without the permission of the persons in those videos or those images. But how many of us will be under people's comments or posts begging, I beg, send me that link, send me the link? How many of us will be begging? Yet, we'll be claiming that, oh, we respect everybody, we respect people's rights, we are feminists, we are this, we are that. You are a feminist, yet you are sitting or in somebody's inbox begging them to give you another person's nudes, another person's video. Why? If it is your sister or your brother that is in those videos, will you be as eager to share them with people? So this is for us to remember that we can't claim to be good citizens when we profess one thing in public, but what we do when we are behind the scenes with our friends in private, what we do and the kind of things we support go against what we profess outside. A good citizen must make sure that people's rights are protected at all times, that the most vulnerable amongst us are protected at all times. When you go ahead and share people's nudes and sex videos, you are infringing on the rights of those people. Yes, you are. That person, and as some people argued, when the case of the Ibom hair passenger happened, and the person's bosoms were there on social media, many people were saying, after all, on her own page, she had some suggestive semi-nude photos. After all, she has those on her page. That, my dear friends, does not give you the right to go and share that person's images without permission. The fact that she dresses however she dresses does not give you the right to go and share their nudes. You are infringing on that person's privacy. Simple. There's no way to justify sharing other people's stuff, whether it is on their page or not, except they give you the permission to do that. So let's be more mindful. Let's be more aware. I see sometimes comedians, they come out and in a bid to make people laugh, I see them putting down certain people in our society. For instance, some of them come and they talk about people who are challenged in some way, and they start to make jokes about them, start to make jokes about these people. And we're all there laughing, ha, 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 ha. But that is a fellow citizen, a fellow human being that they are debasing and degrading in that manner. But we are there enabling them by laughing. It's the same thing that happens when we see videos that bring one group of society down and we're sharing them. That's what we're inadvertently doing. I'm bringing up all of these things because we don't think about it. We just do it and we think it is okay. But a real citizen should be conscious that their actions don't infringe on the rights of other people, that their actions are actually safeguarding people's rights and ensuring that the vulnerable in society are protected. That's what a good citizen should do. One of the examples I like to give in this class is people who have influence, especially in this social media era. And one of the examples I cite is Tunde Ednut, the blogger. I don't know if he still does it. I hope that he has stopped. But at some point, he will post pictures of women and sometimes men, and he would caption it smash or pass. And people will go there, smash, pass. And when they are saying pass, they are insulting the people whose images have been put up. Their leg is this, their body part is this is that, this is that, this is that. What you are inadvertently doing, without knowing, you think you're entertaining, is that you are objectifying women. And you are feeding those people who already have predatory tendencies and telling them that it's okay to make remarks unsolicited about women and their bodies. Also, this goes also to men, about men and their bodies. Because when we turn things that are supposed to be serious into play, into joke, what we are doing is feeding a culture that encourages bad behavior. When we make statements like boys will always be boys in defense of actions that men take, actions that debase women, that don't respect women, what we are inadvertently doing is saying our young boys that are coming up tomorrow, they can go and debase and abuse women. So people with influence need to use their platforms not to bring people down, but to ensure, to shed light on issues that affect us, and to ensure that the rights of the majority of people are being protected. And when I say influence, I do not mean that you have to have 2 million followers, 10 million followers like Tunde. Not all of us, each of us, even if you don't have a social media presence, we're all influencers because we come from families. We come from a house, an environment. We come from a state. We go to a school. We work in an office. We go to a church. All of those places, small places that we belong to, as small as the family unit, with our friends, those are our sphere of influence. And within our sphere of influence, we have a responsibility to ensure that we are protecting people. And when we see others doing things that bring down a segment of society, because again, democracy is about universality, right? Ensuring that the majority are protected. It is our duty as citizens to call them to order, even if it's our own friends. So instead of laughing at those jokes that they crack and are making fun of people with Down syndrome or people with some challenge, physical challenge or mental challenge, or people who are just different from us, who have different preferences from us, when they are debasing those people, instead of sharing those posts or laughing, let us stop sharing it and let us call our friends out or talk to them respectfully and let them to know that this does not serve the good of society. Okay, I'll rush through all of the other points. A good citizen, we already said that a good citizen should be concerned about taking steps to combat disadvantage and injustice, should promote collective action and a collective spirit. That's what we've been saying all along. Participate in community and national affairs. I said that also earlier. Sometimes we think that the little actions that we make, like our votes, doesn't count, but you're mistaken. If you sit by and you do not join in the electoral process when you are of age, you have lost the right to complain when things don't go well. I know some will argue that, yes, I voted, but did my vote really count? Yes, successive elections may not have gone perfectly, but we can't afford to say because it hasn't gone the way we wanted, we will sit future elections out. What we are doing is mortgaging our future and the future of our children. We must continue to come out and fulfill our own part and demand accountability in all of these processes. The last thing I want to say about this point about what makes a good citizen is I know that a country like Nigeria can frustrate you. That is the truth. Nigeria is blessed with so many things. We have so many resources that if other countries had half what we have, those countries will be miles better than Nigeria is today. We have brilliant people. We have kind people. We have a lot of things going for us. But because of the way the country has been run, and unfortunately, even the younger generation, us, all of us, have been socialized in that way to accept the abnormal as normal. We see frustration everywhere. This is a country where people literally provide their own security, provide their own life because there's no, stable power. So I agree with you. I share the pains of most people who live in this country. Nigeria can frustrate you. But just as Nigeria has its challenges, other countries do too. We must never forget that. One thing I want to ask you is, as challenging as this country is, in order for there to be any chance of things getting better, you have to have a shred of hope. Without a shred of hope, it is impossible to take actions that would make things better. So this is me making an appeal to everyone, and this is part of what it entails to become a good patriotic citizen, is to be hopeful that things can better. If you lose hope, then you're not motivated to do anything right, anything that can make a change. So I am appealing to all of us to not lose hope in spite of, all of the things that are going wrong in this country. The little steps, efforts that you and I make in our own small corner of the world, those steps will add up. And it may not be today, but maybe it's in the life of our children. The steps that we are taking today in the right directions, those steps will materialize and things will get better. In conclusion, building an active citizenry. It's important to build public interest. Again, within your sphere of influence, start talking about issues that affect us on social media. Lend your voice. All of us don't have to be in politics, but lend your voice to issues that are happening and resist dominant values. People are used to doing things in a certain way because of the way they've been socialized. They've been taught that wrong is right. Think outside the box. Be that person that dares to be different. People will call you crazy. They will laugh at you. But you know inside your heart that what you're doing is the right thing. Be that change that you want to see. In building an active citizenry, it's important to promote civic education and advocacy training, which is why what we're doing here today, what the Electoral College is doing, is very, very commendable. And I think beyond secondary schools, when we were much younger, primary and secondary school, we had citizenship education as a subject. I hope that they're still doing it in schools today. But beyond even just schools, in places of work, in places of worship, there should be education as to our roles as citizens, because it's not something that is left for politicians. All of us have a role to play, and civic education is something that must continue even in workplaces, because citizens have a role to play. And to make a change, it is important to pursue broad-based citizen action. This means that if, as a group, my interest is in raising a generation of young people who are politically literate, instead of doing it all alone, right? It's good to have platforms like this. It's good to go on TV and lend my voice to advocacy about citizen literacy, or politeracy, as the Electoral College calls it. But what would it be even better is if we identify other groups like us that are passionate about the same thing, and we join our voices together. I'm only using the Electoral College as an example. Some of us do amazing work in different social spheres. Instead of going it alone, let's look at people organizations that share the same passion, interest, and try to do stuff together. Because when we come together and amplify our voices, that's how we force change. That's how we force the people in leadership to listen to us. That's how we shape public perception. That's how we advocate for changes in laws in the country that will be better for everyone in the long run. I would like to conclude that advocacy that is geared to building citizenship and reshaping political culture draws heavily on the theory and practice of participation and popular education. What I have been saying all along, in our own different corners, in our own little ways, we need to get involved. A new practice of citizens leadership requires an integrated strategy involving participatory education processes to build people's ability to analyze their reality and internalize their rights as citizens. It also takes new alliances and broad-based democratic organizations that tap the power of working together, as well as respecting and using people's differences. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my presentation for today. I will now hand over to the moderator to see if we have questions and comments. Oh, and please, I would like to be able to see the chat box, whoever is manning this, so that I can see what people have said in the chat boxes. Hello, is our moderator there? Is someone speaking?
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for an insightful class. Hello, please, Lucas, are you there?
Yes, I am here. I can hear you.
Okay.
Charlie, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Peace.
Okay. Okay, so sorry, my network threw me out a bit for a moment. Okay, so we already have people raising their hands. So we'll take Alamba, sorry. Alamba, you can unmute and ask your question. Alamba, are you there? Okay, if Alamba is not there, please let's take Ibrahim. Ibrahim, I've asked you to unmute.
Hello. Oh, hello. Good evening. Oh, good evening. Can
Okay,
you
who
hear
is
me?
speaking? Okay,
It's
Alamba, please
Ibrahim.
just wait a moment. Good. Ibrahim, go ahead. Please, in 30 seconds, ask your question.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, the presenter. This is the second time listening to your presentation, and this is fantastic. Thank you very much for your support and your knowledge sharing. My own question is regarding the citizenship. The things that is what do you call bothering me with Nigerians is one, lack of patriotism. Let's talk about citizenship. You will see a Nigerians being given an option to utilize, but the person will accommodate more than enough, not considering there is other people on a queue that deserve that. For example, in terms of feeding, in like some occasions, or it's designated for like 40 people, but one person will carry for 3. And if it is he the one fall comes at last that he didn't got, he will be the first person complaining that I didn't got. So as a grassroots, what is your recommendation for us to start advocating so that people will be considerable, will be patriotic? Then my second question is on participation in the electoral processes. You asked us that you need to know from your councillor level to your president. That is a very, very critical point that most of our people in Nigeria lose. They don't know their ward councillor, they don't know their local government chairman, they don't know their state house of assembly, they don't know their house of reps, they don't know their senator. It's only president, some of them know, but they know all the players, other actors in the sectors or in the entertainment sector. Then they will be complaining, shifting blame, saying that nothing is working in the country. So my question in that civic participation is like the first question I asked. As a knowledgeable person in the industry, what recommendation are you going to give us for us to continue advocating for people to get to know their representative and hold them accountable in a respectable manner for us to get this country where it's supposed to for our future and current and present generation to benefit? Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ibrahim. So
Thank
should we
you.
take them one after the other?
No, so that I don't forget. Let's take one after the other. Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes. Ibrahim, thank you for your remarks and question. Again, like I said at the start, I'm not an expert in this subject. I'm just a passionate citizen like you. And this forum is also a learning opportunity for me. What you said about people being inconsiderate of others holds true, not just here, but everywhere. And part of being a good citizen, like I said throughout the presentation, is thinking about the good of the majority. Unfortunately, the way we talk a lot about our leaders, and when we talk of our leaders, we're talking, people beyond their 50s, 60s. Unfortunately, even us and younger than my generation, the way we have been socialized is to normalize the bad things, in quote, as the right way to do things. So we require a mindset shift. Some of these things we do, I say socialized because we don't know better. We do almost instinctively because that is what we were born into. That is what we have seen modeled for us. So we don't even take time. We don't take time to think about why we're doing the things we do, which is why platforms like this, and I hope others are good, to help us think critically about our actions and the reasons why we take those actions. Again, democracy and citizenship is really about the good of the majority. So if I am thinking of my brother, if I am thinking of my sister, when they have made provisions for 30 people, and I know you're talking about, maybe parties everywhere, not just the parties. You go to even political events, and there are souvenirs and stuff, and one person is taking everything. You should think about the other person. It's not just what is expected of you. Okay, this is part of what I'm talking about, Nigeria. Never mind the darkness. That's because public power is out, but the generator will be on. So, but at least we can all hear me, right? We can all hear me. Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Okay, so yes, what is needed is a mind shift for all of us we have to start thinking more about the things we do and making sure that we're taking decisions and actions that benefit not just us, but the majority of the people. That's what good citizenship should be about. And in terms of political participation, Ibrahim, we just have to keep encouraging one another. Uh, I get the people who say that the system has sort of discouraged them, that they don't even want to be part of anything. And this was why I said, I admit that this country can frustrate you because a lot of things are not going right. But we have to stay hopeful. Hold on, even if it's a small shred of hope, stay hopeful and get involved in any way that we can. Not all of us can be politicians. Not all of us can be elected officials, but all of us can use our voice to demand change. Social media platforms, thank God we have them. Those are areas, platforms that we can use. Contribute to public discourse. Whatever is being said, and then don't just go and contribute blindly. That's another thing. We have to be responsible. Somebody says something against the president, and because you feel that you don't like this person or this person is from this part, for whatever reason that you have, when it comes to commentaries, don't base your post or comment on the feelings you had about the person in the past. Base it on the reality of that particular issue. Don't just go and start spreading falsehood because you hate somebody, right? Let's be responsible about the things that we put out when it comes to the social media space, when it has to do with our leaders. Let's get active, let's comment, but let's do our due diligence. Don't just run with everything that is shared on social media, right? The other day, somebody made a post about pardon for, I don't remember who it was, for one of our past leaders. I don't know if it was Herbert Macaulay. One of the people was pardoned. Somebody said, oh, they don't know what they're doing because they're pardoning somebody who is late. But the person did not ask, but why are they pardoning the person? What was the reason behind that? Yes, you may not like the president. You may have your reasons for that. But did you dig to find out why that pardon was done? Or are you just running with commentaries that, oh, they don't know what they are doing? I'm not saying there are other instances where they don't know what they're doing, but treat cases on their own individual merit. Don't come with your previous biases. Look at things. Somebody is saying something, challenge that thing, critique it before you go around spreading it. That's how we can be responsible citizens, by doing our due diligence and contributing to public discourse in a way that is respectful, in a way that seeks out and propagates the truth. I don't have like all the answers, Ibrahim, but all we have to do is keep encouraging one another in our own little ways. Keep contributing to our public discourse. Keep speaking out against ills in our society, whether it is against men, whether it is against women, whether it's against children. Don't join the bandwagon. If a woman has done something bad, don't say because you're a woman, you must side with the woman. No. If a man has done something bad, don't say it's because you're a man, you must side with the man. Let us look at issues objectively and always seek out the truth and propagate the truth. That is how our society will get better. I hope that helps. Yes.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir. Tolulope, you have 30
Okay.
seconds to ask your question.
Thank you very much. I have a question. I have a comment to make, and I also have a question. So my comment is as regards many of the diversities the presenter mentioned as regard democracy in Nigeria. We have so many diverse group of people. We have the Yoruba Muslim, we have an Edo non-Muslim and all. I believe we can start to include people in Nigerian democracy by prioritizing life, by giving dignity to life first. Then other things can come in. So that's just my comment. So my question is, how you mentioned about how the democracy in some countries is not what the whole scope of democracy is. Yes, and I agree with you because I believe the democracy in Burkina Faso is doing more of democracy than what we are doing in Nigeria because the citizens are well represented. So my question is, how do citizens um, make government, or how do citizens checkmate um, the government and make democracy what it's supposed to be beyond just voting and all of that? Because there's something about you voting a leader, then the leader just electing people that will advance his own cause. So I want you to like advise, how do we checkmate leaders and make them do the right thing when it comes to democracy? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Olulokwe, for the remark and the question. Just like I said to Ibrahim earlier, it's really to keep using whatever platforms that we have. Those of us who can get involved in the political space, by all means do. Like, if you want to go and become an active politician, you are needed. We need good people in politics, not just people who want to go there and make money for themselves and their family, but people who really want to bring about a change, right? So by all means, if that is your thing, if you feel called to serve, join a political party, register, join a political party. You can start small, ward level, wherever, and you can make an impact there. But again, not all of us can be in politics. So in our own sphere of influence, wherever that is, even casually, like I said, while drinking nkwobi, while eating nkwobi and drinking with my friends, while at that salon making my hair, whatever it is in my family, in my church, in small groups that I belong to, little actions are what will add up and make the difference in society. But each of us, wherever we are, we just must take those steps. It's very, 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 very important. I talked before about knowing your representatives at the local level. If you don't, participate, how can you then give feedback? For instance, some of the local governments, LCDA chairmen, they have feedback platforms. How many of us know about those? How many of us are giving them feedback on what we see happening within our locality? Or we just, go about our business as if what is happening doesn't concern us? So we need to get more involved, and it's in little ways like this that would make a huge difference. That's all I can say to this, and I hope that helps, Tolulope.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. The next person, okay, Erogene. Erogene, you can unmute and ask your question.
Sorry, before Erogene, let me just respond to Deborah. Deborah, thank you for your message. You said you don't think anarchism should be considered a form of government. So when I started, when I was talking about that, I said technically for, academically, textbook-wise, political scientists would tell you that it's a form of government. In practice, you can't say that there is no form of government in a place, right? But like I said, you see signs that even in all these other forms of government, there are times when it appears like the state is rudderless. There is nothing, no one leading. We see that in many democratic societies. So bringing it out is for academic reasons and just to show that even in democracies or other forms of government, you can still have situations where it seems like there is no government in place. And I'm sure if you think through different eras in this country and other countries, you will see that those situations have happened. But thank you for the comment, Deborah. Yes, Erogene, you can go ahead and make your comment or ask your question now.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, able lecturer. So I have two questions. The first one is, in a situation where you have, you want, this is what you want to promote. This thing is wrong, but this is what this is what the society uh, is for, and you are fighting against it like it's not something that you really want for the society. For instance, it's legally not right for the society. So you are trying to put it right. And the rest of the society are kind of, their mindset is warped and they don't understand what you're trying to do, and they kind of fought it. What do you do in that situation? Sometimes it even result to your own threat, a threat to your own life. What do you do in that case? Then my number two question is: you said we can use our platform. Me, I'm a born activist. I use my Facebook, and I when I'm around my circle, I talk. And then now, if I want to get into the world of the electronic media, how do I achieve that? Thank you very much. That's a question I have to ask.
Okay. Change is difficult. And that's the truth. Because people are used to doing things in a certain way. But we have to be brave and consistent. You may be the only person, or there may not be many of us who are trying to do things right. I'm going to give you an example. I host events as an MC, high-profile events. And the last event I hosted, it so happened that the organizers had communicated a certain time, but they actually intended to start 2 hours after that time. We all know what that thing we call African time, right? And a lot of people are used to it, including the organizer of this event. But you see, what that does is makes you lose credibility, and people would not take you seriously because you don't take them and their time seriously. So what I always say is, if you have an event and you have done the work of, telling people this is when you want to start and all of that, try as much as possible to start as close to that time. Yes, people are used to coming late. They'll probably come late and meet the event halfway. But if we continue doing the right things, eventually they will get the memo that we're no longer doing things the same way. It may take time, it may be difficult, but we're no longer doing things the same way, that things are going to have to change. It's in the same way that you believe strongly in something, in a course, and you feel like you are going against the current. All you have to do is just keep doing what you can and being consistent at what it is that you're doing. And eventually, more and more people will identify with what you're doing. And that change, it may not start big or immediately, but eventually, with consistent effort, that change will eventually happen. Just know that all that is required of you is doing the best that you can with your conscience, satisfied that, yes, I have done the best that I can. That's all that is required from you. Don't bother so much about the result. Just be concerned about doing the best for you. And then with time, the change might be slow, but with time, it will happen. If all of us keep resisting, to do things the way everybody does and deciding that, okay, everybody does it the wrong way, but I am going to do it the right way. And, small one person, okay, give an example. I think it was the Miss Universe Miss Universe pageant or so. I'm not sure which one, but there was a beauty pageant recently, and one of the top organizers, was talking really disrespectfully to one of the contestants. I don't remember which country now. And at some point, she refused to be silenced. And when the man threatened to throw her out, she decided to walk out. Guess what happened? Other contestants followed. And that forced the world to put its searchlight on the organizers of the pageant. That person was forced to come out, and he was crying on camera, apologizing for what he had done. Change may not come fast, but if all of us take consistent small steps, we will eventually get there. That's all I can say to that, Prosper, and I hope that helps. I want to acknowledge some more comments in the chat box. Thank you, Akudo. You said it's important to be mindful. Oh, sorry.
My second question was, how do I get to use the electronic media for my advocacy without being billed? Can I use it for free?
Electronic media, I work in media, right? And electronic media is usually TV, radio, even though things like social media, broadly speaking, still fall under electronic media. But in technical terms, it usually refers to TV, radio. You can write people in different programs that you are interested in, that you think might advance the agenda or the course that you are pursuing. You can write the producer and tell them that you have ideas about a particular issue, for what it's worth, right? But one of the other ways, while you're doing that, whatever platform that you control, even if it's your own page, consistently keep doing what you do. Someday somebody would recognize you, and it may not be the invite that you sent that will get you the exposure. It may be the work that you have done or that you have been doing in the past that somebody sees. They probably never even saw your invite. But be like, oh, this person has been speaking consistently about this course, and I think more people need to hear what this person has to say. And then you get invitations to speak at an event or to be on an analyst on a program, on a TV or radio program, right? So I'm telling you practically what you can do. If you're interested, because you talked about the electronic media, and I'm assuming you're talking about TV and radio, the big ones. Write to them about what you're passionate about and the ideas that you have. Hopefully, somebody responds. And even if they don't, continue to do what you do consistently on platforms that you can control. You can control your own social media channel, for instance. Keep lending your voice, keep putting your voice out there. You don't know who might be watching, and you don't know where they might be watching or listening from. you might just get that call to a bigger platform tomorrow. So I just want to encourage you to keep doing what you do. I hope that helps. Prosper.
Yes, sir. Thank you very
Yes.
much.
I will hand over to Peace, but before then, I just want to acknowledge some comments. Akudo said it's important to be mindful of our biases and ensure that we do not allow them to blind us or lead us in the wrong direction. Very, very important. Yes, I see Uzo. Uzo said, if we back down, we'll be stuck with what we don't want. Yes, this is speaking to what Adejumo and Prosper said before. Let's just keep consistent, small, consistent efforts. That's what will bring about the change that we need. Just be consistent. Yes, I see Jessica echoing that, that consistency pays. Okay, back to you. Peace.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. This is because I think as I stated earlier, I think you didn't hear me.
Such a pity your,
I said that
your
I believe
network.
that is going to be class and at the same also expository. So we cannot thank you enough, and thank you for doing this again. This is another cohort and you're here with us again. And I believe that we look forward to having you in other courses. Just to say that is something that cannot be overemphasized. So to everyone in this class, we have heard the change will not happen overnight, but gradually with time.
Your network is bad. You're breaking.
Yes, I think a network is bad, but I'm guessing we're trying to close the class, right? Because our time is far spent. You want to do that, Taylor?
It's going to
Peace.
happen, right? So
Oh,
as much
Peace
as
is back.
right, let it spread like wildfire, teach one. And we have
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And on behalf of the college, we appreciate all your efforts and for this 19th cohort. So we hope to see you again in the 20th cohort.
Yes,
Thank you
thank you,
very much.
everyone. I have one last request. We can continue these conversations on other platforms, but the platform that I would really love you to follow is on LinkedIn. Tony Usidamen is the name. You can follow me on LinkedIn. Thank you to everyone and enjoy a lovely weekend.
Thank you, sir. You too. Good night, everyone. Classes continues tomorrow. Bye for now.